got a question for you. I put this question up on Facebook a couple of times in different groups. Would you read a book about a sexual predator from the predator's point of view? The book is called The Perv. I got some mixed opinions from those two posts. There's some hate in there, yeah. It triggers a lot of things for people. Trigger being the operative word. And I'll tell you a little bit later about the responses and see if it aligns with you. But let me just give you a little synopsis. It's about not a corporate psychopath, that's not the right word. He's a corporate high flyer. He does well. He's got a beautiful partner and he loves the young women. There's a young woman who comes into his work, and he decides he wants her. She's 21, he's 28, I think, at this time. And something happens. He gets her drunk one night. It's kind of complicated. There's a bit more to it, but he definitely oversteps the mark. And it jumps forward in time, and then another thing happens, and then there are major, major consequences. Now, what makes it controversial, I think, is because most sorts of stories about sexual predators is generally from the point of view of the people who's tracking this person down. I mean, there's a million of those, crime shows and books about this sort of thing. But this isn't like that. This is from the predator's point of view, and it's first person. So you're in his head the whole time. And if naturally, like everybody does, they justify their own behaviour, their own actions. So this guy's going to justify what he does. Now that's the controversy about it. Now I put this out there, and immediately, like quite a visceral, like a mixture of responses. Some people said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. I'll read it." Maybe half people said that, but others were like, "Yeah, they were angry at me. Like, I must be the pervert. I must be a pervert to write like that. Why would you write that?" And I think feminists particularly wouldn't want to read this type of thing. But this anger was definitely there with some people, not the majority. For others, they'd something happened to me when I was young, so no, I wouldn't read it. And fair enough. I mean, of course, those people wouldn't want to read it. But does that mean it shouldn't be published? I had some people say it shouldn't be published. I mean, the media, stories, books, films, saturated with violence all the time, and even sexual violence too. But does that mean that those things shouldn't be made because there are people in the world that experience it? I mean, I myself have been a victim of violence. And yes, sometimes it's confronting to watch certain things or be exposed to certain things. So you just don't expose yourself to it. That doesn't mean it should not be released. It's up to the individual person to decide whether it's applicable to them. So for you, what do you think? Would you read something like that? Do you think that sort of thing should be published? I mean, I'm actually, as I'm talking about this right now, I'm still debating whether I should publish it or not, because in today's world, you got to be a little bit careful about what you do and say. It doesn't take much for people to lose their jobs, their careers, etc., turn their lives upside down. If someone takes offence or if someone wants to give you a hard time, very easy done today. We know this. So this is why it's controversial. But for me, if you check out my other books and my other stories and poems, I'm interested in human behaviour, what drives people to do certain things. And I'm not interested in these black and white characters. I mean, this guy is not, a rapist who drags people off the street into a dark alleyway. I mean, that's cliche bullshit. That's, that does happen very rarely, but it does happen. But I'm more interested in the charismatic person, the person who's doing well in life, who's successful. That to me is more interesting. In fact, this story, The Perv, had its genesis in a book, a 3-part novel that I wrote about narcissism. And I wanted, rather than just talking about narcissism, I did one guy who was like an outcast, and I kind of made him commit a terrorist act. This was written 10 years ago. And another one was about a corporate successful guy who was a corporate high flyer and was a sexual predator, but not over the top sexual predator. Borderline. Is he a predator, or is he a normal guy? He's just goes a bit too far. That's the things, those interesting questions. And I like the audience. I give faith in the audience or the reader to make up their own mind. It's not up to me to decide. It's up to people to decide. Is this person bad or good? Anyway, that one story of the terrorist act, that became my I took that and expanded it into Lone Wolf World, which is the first novel I published, even though it was the 7th one I'd written. And now I've gone back and taken this other one, The Perv, because there's a lot of talk about, consent and sexual harassment and changing laws in our workplaces and in society. So, I think it's a really timely book. But, it's controversial, as I said, for the reason I've already explained. Should it be published? I don't know. I don't want, my life to be turned into a shit pile either because someone's taken offence and decided to bring me down. It's a work of fiction. It's not me. It's not about me, but it should stimulate thought. And I like those grey areas. That's where the interesting stuff lies. Let people make up their own minds. Let them think about these issues themselves. I don't like this judgmental behaviour that we see a lot of, and this sort of condescending tones that there's only one school of thought. There's not one solution, not one size fits all. There's 20 solutions or there's 20 possible angles to every subject, and they're not always politically correct or, not always going to favour one particular group over another. So, The Perv. Would you read a book called The Perv? Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested to know, generally interested to know what you think. And if a lot of people are not interested, I probably won't publish it, There's got to be enough people who feel as though, yes, that's something that's interesting and worthwhile reading. Because if people are going to hate me for it, well, then I probably won't publish it. I've got other books I can release that I've finished already. But this seems very topical right now. And I think it will be for the next few years. Maybe for much longer. I don't know. It's probably one of those always contentious issues. Let me know your thoughts, please, and swing by my other videos, and my website is anthonyjlangfordbooks.com. The link is there, and you can sort of see the work that I've done. There's some book trailers there too, some short films. You can see that I'm interested in exploring the darkness as human beings, but also the complexity of people. People aren't black and white. People aren't simplistic. We're complex beings. We have a lot going on, and I think the characters in a book or in a film should also have all those complexities. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers.